Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Purpose Up podcast. Today, I am super psyched to have with me Jullien Gordon. Welcome, Jullien.
What's going on, Ben? How you doing, brother?
Doing good, thank you. So, Jullien is an entrepreneur, a five-time TED speaker, a author, and many other things. So I'm excited to dig deep into everything that you're doing and all the stuff that you have done. So let's start at the beginning. Let's tell us a little bit about your backstory. Let's go back to the beginning, your superhero origin story.
Yeah, man. Well, the crucible moment for me was at the age of 18. I was actually headed into. I basically started UCLA as a sophomore because of APs and honors and things of that nature. And so I had finished my first year at UCLA, and I thought I was doing everything that I was supposed to do as a good kid. And I have middle class background, so I was born with a lot of privilege, and I recognized that. And so I was on the path. I'm the son of two doctors, and I was on the path to, pursue some sort of traditional professional career, a good standing career, especially to satisfy a Caribbean father and a mother who were both doctors, one an oral surgeon and the other anesthesiologist. So education was their key. Education was their path, and I think it worked. The kind of education that currently exists worked for them.
Right.
And so I was on that path, just be good, get good grades, go to good school, get a good job. I was on that path. And at the age of 18, I bought a Mercedes-Benz. It was a 1990 190E.
Okay.
I bought it from used car auction using money that I saved from working at the batting cage during high school, umpiring during high school, and tutoring during my first year of college. And I bought this car because, I believe that success was getting the things that your parents got faster than they got them, right? Do better than
Okay.
your parents, right? And so if they got a nice house by the age of 35, then I had to have one by 30. If they got a nice car by the age of 25, I had to have one by 20. So I bought a Mercedes Benz, and 2 miles after driving it off the lot, it broke down. And
Dope.
yeah, and I spent more money to fix the car than I did to buy it. So that was a huge wake up call for me. And so I finally got the car back. I had it for about 2 weeks, and my friends and I were promoting parties at the time. This was my kind of not my first foray into entrepreneurship, but actually my first foray into entrepreneurship in the context of a team. So we were throwing parties, and the way you promote a party is you pass out flyers at a party that's letting out the night before yours. And so we were out in LA on the strip, and I pull into a parking lot with three other guys in my car, and I turn off the headlights, I turn off the engine, and the moment I do that, two men jump out of the car in front of us with guns drawn, and all of a sudden I'm staring down the barrel of a gun.
What?
Yeah, man. And that was a huge moment for me. And the car was gone. They took the car. It was gone. Everything that was in it was gone. Police found it, I think, like a month later, and it was totaled. But I had this near-death experience, and that summer I happened to be an RA. I had no more money, but I was an RA, so I had housing and food taken care of, the basic necessities,
Right.
and there was no more going out, no more partying, and I went through a deep space of introspection, where I started asking myself some real critical questions, like, why the heck did I buy a Mercedes Benz? I could have got a Honda Civic, and it would have been all good, right? Whose definition of success was I living?
Right.
And it was clear that I was living my parents' definition of success, and not mine. The only reason I bought a Mercedes Benz was because both my parents had Mercedes Benzes. It was the only car that I'd ridden in my entire life. And so I didn't know any better, literally. And I was trying to show my parents that I was on a path of success like them. And then the real question that was the hardest to answer, and continues to be the hardest to answer, not only for myself, but for most people, which is, how do you define success? Right? It's no longer your parents' definition of success. If you've broken away from society's definition of success, how do you define success? And I talk to adults, I talk to millennials, I talk to adults, and most people have never actually taken out a piece of paper and actually defined success and freedom for
Right.
themselves. And until you define it for yourself, you just adopt society's default dashboard, which is money, power, wealth, fame, and beauty. And the reality is that every human being has their own unique definition of success. And if you are chasing this one singular definition of success, then you are always going to feel behind. I believe that comparison is the killer of happiness. And if you were comparing yourself to somebody else's definition of success, you will always feel behind because they're better than you in this way, or while you're better than them in this way, you'll always feel like you're lacking, and it's a sucky way to feel. And so that was my origin story. And as I went through this space of introspection, and I realized the power of questions, the Socratic method of looking in the mirror and asking myself some critical questions about who I am, what I want, and why I'm here. That led me on a journey away from the traditional career paths that were out there that people had expectations of me for, and kind of led me to creating my own career path. Because honestly, as I gained more and more awareness of who I was, I didn't see a job per se that would allow me to be all of who I am on a daily basis. And I believe that who you are should define what you do. What you do does not define who you are, but society has actually flipped that.
Right. I think that's, it's a really important point that, people do need to define what success means to them. And I know, for myself, it was too long that I was kind of unconsciously going along with what I was trying to do to like please my parents. And that's something that you have to like figure out, like you'll never feel right doing that. And so many people have this like gnawing discontent. And it's like similar to that, like, what you're describing is feeling behind. So I think that is so important. And you mentioned asking yourself the right questions, and I totally agree with that. Was there any like methodology that you used for that? Was it like meditation? Was it journaling? How did you gain that clarity? Because I know for me and probably other people, like your ego can get in the way of trying to get to that inner intuition,
Yeah, understood. Yeah. So for me, it was a lot of reading, reading books like The Alchemist, reading spiritual texts like the Bible. I actually read the Bible cover to cover during that particular period of my life. And I became I had a deep spiritual hunger at that moment in time. When I was younger, I went to church, but I went to church not because I chose to, but because that's where my friends were.
Right.
And when I got to UCLA and I'm kind of trapped in Westwood, don't have any transportation, my relationship to my spiritual source kind of got distant. Now, I believe that your spiritual source never leaves you.
Right.
I didn't have any rituals around practicing or connecting with my spiritual source. And so this experience kind of brought me back to that. And I'm actually grateful for it now, because some of the questions and the processes that I went through, I would not have been exposed to had I not gone through that experience at that age. A lot of people don't ask themselves these critical questions until they're in the quote unquote midlife crisis. And I got to start asking myself these questions at the age of 18 and start living my life with the wisdom that comes from asking yourself these questions. So in addition to mentors, reading, a lot of spiritual growth, I did a sweat lodge at that time up in, I don't know, Calabasas or something like that. Did a sweat lodge. I hadn't adopted meditation yet. I did journal. I did journal daily though.
Right.
And my journal was literally like two questions. What did I enjoy about today? And how did I feel I showed up?
Right.
What did I enjoy about today? And how did I feel I showed up? And I would just type on my computer before I went to bed. It could be 2 sentences, it could be a whole page, but those are the two questions that I use to reflect on my life. Socrates said, an unexamined life is not worth living. And so I really took that on and said, let me not just have that as a quote in my head or on my wall, but how do I actually implement that and create a ritual around that? And so that was my process. And I did that for about a year and a half during that time of just journaling every day, taking a moment to look at my life and how I was showing up in my own life. And that was a powerful process for me. There are tons of other books that I could just run off a list, but I would say the ones that were most critical for me were The Alchemist, A Purpose-Driven Life, and other spiritual texts.
Okay, cool. So we see this transformation during your college years. So then, what did that yield coming out of that transformation?
Yeah, well, the first thing it yielded for me was getting off the path that my path of privilege. And what I mean by that is that at that moment in time, I recognized that I didn't know how much of my success was because of me and how
Right.
much of it was actually me just riding the wave of what my parents had already created. And I wanted to know how successful I could be, not just riding the wave. And I try to leverage my privilege. I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but now I try to take that silver spoon and feed as many people as possible with it. But I wanted to separate my life and success from the momentum that my parents created with their own lives. And so the first thing that I did, the first what I call authentic choice that I made, and by authentic choice, I mean a choice that came from me. I didn't see it anywhere. I wasn't modeling anybody. I wasn't copycatting. It was fully conscious and aware that this was a unique thought that came through me. And a lot of people, even adults, have never had a unique thought. All our thought, we think we're thinking for ourselves, and the reality is that we're just rethinking and regurgitating thoughts that have been planted in us by our parents, by society, by preachers, by teachers. And most people have never had an authentic thought. And so one of the first authentic thoughts that came to me as I was now open and kind of, I think they call it tabula rasa, blank slate, as I was now this kind of blank slate and
Right.
realized I could create and design my life in whatever way I wanted, was I decided to graduate from UCLA in 3 years. I hadn't seen it done. There wasn't anybody that told me to do it. It was a challenge that I decided to pick up on by myself. And I came in with some AP credits and things of that nature. So I already had some units under my belt. I finished my first year and I mapped out my classes because I'm a planner. I'm very strategic. And I said, look, if I take an extra class here and here and here and here, and I can actually get out of here in 3 years. And that's going to save me $25,000. And so I said, who said college has to be 4 years?
Right.
Right? Who said it has to be 4 years? And I said, okay, I'm just going to do this in 3. And it was the first kind of unique challenge that I set up for myself and a unique decision that I made for myself. And I'm so glad that I did it. It was challenging, but I recognized that it was my choice. And when you actually start making choices for yourself, I was able to take the momentum from that choice and succeeding at it and say, wow, I can choose and create whatever I want, not just in school, but in life. And that my life kind of continued to unfold from there.
Yeah. I mean, giving yourself 25K in an extra year, it's got to be pretty empowering.
Yeah, and what's beautiful is it really aligned with a career opportunity there. I ended up running a nonprofit out of after undergrad, but the thing about it is that the seat for the director of this nonprofit, it only came up every 2 years. So
Okay.
if I had waited to graduate in 4 years with my peers, then this opportunity would not have been available. And yeah, just to see how things sync up when divine timing is in place is really, really powerful.
So, synchronicity.
Yes, yes.
Nice. Okay. So you transitioned into a director of this nonprofit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you want me to continue?
Please.
Yeah, so this nonprofit, we did educational outreach and homework assistance for youth in Inglewood and LAUSD. So here I am, 21 years old, managing a part-time staff of 30 college students. With how much was our budget? I don't remember how much our budget was, but I actually raised a significant amount of money to fund us in that year. I actually came into the organization. The organization was about to go broke, and I was able to show up in a way and form partnerships that allowed us to have the funding to continue to do this great work that we were doing in the community. And that was a leadership challenge because at that time in your life, you haven't had too much leadership. I mean, I was vice president at my high school. I ran some student organizations, but being a leader that people look up to and rely on, that was my first real leadership challenge.
Right.
And I'm so grateful for it. It was the greatest leadership training that I ever had, especially when you have part-time staff who this is not their full thing, right? Like
Right.
they have all these other things going on, but you still have to reach your metrics. You still have to serve the young people that we're dedicated to serving while they're trying to still graduate from college. And so I had to figure out how to motivate and inspire others. I was good at doing that for myself and getting myself across the finish line. but now I had to figure out how I did that for other people. And so that was a great experience. It was 2 years. It was a 2 year term, like I said. From there, I went on to
just a quick question there. What were kind of the lessons that you did learn about leadership there that you've carried on with you?
yeah. So I thought leader had to be this charismatic, great public speaker. That's kind of like the traditional model of leadership with this heavy hand, and out of that, for me, emerged what I call the 4 levels of leadership. And the first level of leadership is self leadership, and that's basically believing in yourself. Most of us get stuck because we have so much self doubt. So I was a self leader. And then the next level is actually inspiration. Inspiration is saying, Ben can do it, but I can't do it, right? I'm inspired by what Ben is up to in the world, but I can't do that, right? I can't create a podcast. I can't write a book. I can't do this. And a lot of people get stuck at inspiration. And I knew inspiration wasn't enough, and it's not true empowerment. So the next level after that is motivation. And motivation is saying, if Ben can do it, I can do it too. If Ben can do it, I can do it too. And now you've actually created more leaders. The biggest insight that I got from that was that a great leader creates more leaders. Leaders do not desire followers whatsoever. Great leaders do not desire followers. What they are seeking to do is create more leaders. And so great leadership is someone who creates more leaders. And so the 4th level of leadership, is the highest, and that is a movement. And that is saying, that is actually a space where you, Ben, or me, Jullien, as the leader, doesn't even have to be present, because now we've empowered the people around us in such a way that even when we aren't physically present, they are still moving the mission and the vision forward. And a lot of people get stuck on inspirational leadership. You see it in student organizations, you see it in nonprofits, you see it in businesses. The moment that the quote unquote head leaves for whatever reason, the organization collapses, and that's because it was based on inspirational leadership and not moving towards motivation and movement.
That makes a lot of sense. And I like that framework for looking at it. So I think that's actually a good way to skip chronology a little bit and talk about what you're up to today with Mastermind. So you're the CEO of this company, and I think a lot of those themes still are pretty relevant to everything that you're doing today, right?
They are. It's very evident when you look at the world's most successful people. They all move in packs. Whether you look at Serena and Venus, Jay-Z and Beyonce, Warren Buffett and Paul Graham, Bill Gates and Paul Allen. You look at Steve Jobs and Wozniak. You look at the Packard brothers. Like, all the world's most successful people, they run in packs. And yet everybody else is trying to be successful by themselves, and it just doesn't make any sense. And so I'm a community builder. I love bringing people together. I believe that believe that 1 + 1 = 11, and so the word that has really resonated with me has been masterminds. And masterminds is comes from Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich, and he talks about the mastermind principle. And and the reality is that most of us we're taught through the education system to go at life alone, right? Every man for themselves, pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. Well, the reality is that somebody else had to make those bootstraps, right? So we are all reliant on each other, yet we think we're doing this alone. And it's just not how the world's most successful people move. And so through masterminds.org, I have found other leaders or lighthouses who are doing amazing work and found ways to integrate into their business models mastermind groups where a fraction of their following who actually want more, who actually want community, who want to get results faster, actually form masterminds that they lead. And so I help online coaches, influencers, and business leaders create masterminds and get greater results for their clients. We're in an age right now where everybody's trying to create an online course, and that's great, but I'm not just here for people to transfer information. I'm here for the transfer of their actual transformation. I'm not just here for the transfer of information. I'm here for their actual transformation. And without the collective accountability of other people, you know, the reality is only about 7% of people complete an online course, right? This is
I've
why
started a bunch.
started a bunch, right? But it's all about finishing, and not just finishing the course, but the actual implementation.
Right.
And we have a weird psychology about ourselves as human beings where we're more comfortable disappointing ourselves than we are other people. So rather than look at that as a negative thing, then we just need to ask ourselves, how do I get other people involved in the goals that I am setting and what I'm trying to create? And that's what a mastermind does. Masterminds have typically been for entrepreneurs and creatives. So you might see a group of writers getting together. You might see a group of entrepreneurs getting together to share best practices. But I believe that I believe in creating a world where everyone has a team. And the inspiration behind this for me is actually having someone near and dear to me go through Alcoholics Anonymous and seeing how that community, which is a global community all over the world, 120,000 groups serving about 2 million people every week.
Right.
How do we create that same identical community around people's aspirations and not just their addictions, right? So even if you look at the statistics of AA, people who only go to formal treatment alone, trying to do it by themselves, have a 6% 3-year abstinence rate, whereas people who go to formal treatment and AA have a 51% 3-year abstinence rate. So there's a secret sauce there, and that secret sauce is community. But, you know, we get sucked away by our work, we get sucked away by family, we get sucked away from community by all these things. I just know that it's a critical part of people succeeding. You cannot succeed alone in today's world. It's impossible.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, even if it's just being taken away, especially in this day and age with notifications and, you know, addicting digital stuff that just kind of distracts us and keeps us away from community. I think now more than ever, since so many more people are feeling that isolation, bringing people together needs to happen more. So, you know, I really respect that as a mission.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And so in addition to that, there is the Freedom School. And the Freedom School is basically curriculum that I've created to help any and everyone be free. I believe in freedom for all, but it's not just about financial freedom, because that's the type of freedom that most people focus on and even base their career decisions on. We don't really want financial freedom. Nobody wants a pile of paper, green paper. What they want is what they believe financial freedom will get them. We really want the freedom to give our gift to the world. That's what everyone wants at the highest level. Even when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, money only covers the first 2 levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. After that, money can't really get you the other 3 levels. And so what we want more than anything is to give our gift to the world, whatever that is. And to me, that is your purpose, right? You giving your gift to the world is your purpose. And for me, I believe that based on my spiritual belief system, I don't believe that our creator would create us with a purpose and then not give us everything that we need to succeed at that purpose. That would be absolutely cruel. Yeah, I'm giving you a purpose. Here's your purpose. And I'm going to play all these tricks on you, and I'll put all these obstacles in your way so that you can't achieve your purpose. That's just like, no, that's not how it works. But if you have faith and you truly believe that you found what you were to do, I'm not saying there won't be road and hard times along the way, but if you stay true to the path and you believe that this is what you were called to do, I believe that your spiritual source, however you define that, will provide for you, and not only financially, but in even more magical ways than financial, from relationships to how you feel about your life. Because it's not about how much money. See, people are so focused on how much money they make.
Right.
There's a lot of people saying, "Oh, come do this, get rich quick, this, and come sell $10,000 in online course a day." When it's not about how much money you make, it's really about how you make money. It's how you make money, because there's people who make 10 times more than me. In fact, I coach some of them. I don't do a lot of one-on-one coaching, but I coach some of these people who make lots more money than I do, but they still feel their pockets are filled, but they feel unfulfilled. Right? Pockets are filled, but they feel unfulfilled. And they come to me for guidance about how to redesign their lives in such a way that will allow them to feel more free. They thought that having as much money as possible would get them free, and they got it, and it's not there. Now, I'm not saying that it's either or. I believe that you can actually have both. And I do believe having enough money supports you in actually feeling free enough to live out your purpose. And this is why I'm so committed to helping people find business models around their purpose so that they can profit from their purpose. And the reason why is not profit in terms of make as much money as possible. I want them to profit so that they have enough of what they need to continue giving their gift to the world. That's the only sustainable way. A lot of people want to do their purpose way where they end up burned out, because they're giving and not receiving whatever. And as a result, you get burned out and you just stop because there's no replenishment. So I believe that when you find the right business model for your purpose, that it allows you to continue to live out your purpose on a daily basis. And that goes to what I said about, it's not how much money you make, it's how you make money. You're making money doing what you feel you were designed to do and created to do. That is like the ultimate joy in the world. So that's what I'm focused on, pairing my Stanford MBA and all the things that I learned about business that Stanford did not teach me, like sales, etc. To really help not just actually to grow businesses that allow them to live out their purpose on a daily basis.
Well, there's a lot in there right there. So, I mean, I think that all makes a lot of sense. I want to go back to the example of a client who has had success, but they don't feel successful. And I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about maybe having different kind of different motivations for success, whether it be external versus internal. What type of coaching do you give people in that instance where you have to redesign your life to be more aligned with yourself? So what are the practices that you would have them do to figure out what freedom means to them if it's not money?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do have some exercises and some questions, but a lot of my coaching happens like in the moment. It's in the moment. It's like the coaching really comes from creating a space of deep listening and holding that space. And the way I describe deep listening for people who think that they're great listeners is really, it's almost like creating this safe space where this person actually feels free enough to be who they truly are. They don't have to put any mask or facade. And when you create that kind of space, they already know who they are. But there's been all these layers and all these masks that they put on to cover that up. But when you create that safe space, right, this like safe bubble, they literally just speak. They literally speak. And it's not about what I say, that their speaking actually just echoes back to their own ear. Their speaking just echoes back to their own ear. I'm more like a sounding board that just holds up the mirror to remind them of who they are. So that's the overall philosophy. But I mean,
I think that's really, really profound, because I think so many people need someone to talk to without feeling judged, and someone that they totally trust so that they can go into that space, because it's very hard to find that in a friend or a colleague. And I think, masterminds can hold the space for that. But I think, that coaching relationship is amazing for that.
Yeah. So one powerful question that I do ask, I call it the leverage question. And I ask, is there someone else, somewhere else in the world, in your industry, who has equal or greater responsibility than you do, who is having equal or greater results in terms of profits, productivity, performance than you, without the struggle, sacrifice, and sleeplessness that you are experiencing?
Okay.
I just ask that question. And oftentimes the person will not know that person, but the question is, do they believe that person exists? And as long as they believe that person exists, then they know that there's room for growth for them, that there's another way of them achieving what they've achieved without the sacrifices that they've been making to actually do it. And if somebody says, no, there's no other way to do what I've done, then they're blocked and I can't coach them and the coaching relationship is over. If they believe that their way is the only way and there's no better way in the world to create the life that they've created or the business that they created, then there's no room for coaching, right? And so once we open up even a little door, a gap, right? And we're like, okay, even if it's an imaginary person, what is that person doing that I'm not doing? What is that person not doing that I am doing? And how can I get close to them and learn from them? That's one of the big questions that I start with, and everybody says yes, there's got to be somebody out there. And even if it's imaginary, we say, okay, what would that person be doing that I'm not doing? Because we all have the same amount of time. It's really about our activity. And so I'll give you an example. Let's just say you have a flower shop owner, right? And oftentimes you might envision a woman running a flower shop, right?
Yep.
And then you have 1-800-Flowers. And this is a huge insight that I had recently. It didn't come from Stanford. It came through me looking at all the entrepreneurs that I work with. On the front end, both of those businesses look like the same. They both look like a bouquet of flowers. But the CEOs of both those organizations spend their days completely differently, right? One CEO is actually cutting up plants, right? The other CEO is actually managing an entire plant of people, right?
Right.
One CEO is spending their day going to the market to get flowers wholesale. The other CEO of 1-800-Flowers is spending their day marketing the business and the phone number, right? And so at the front end, they both sell the exact same thing, a bouquet of flowers, but the activity behind them and the activity is completely different. So I call this the front end business and the back end business. A lot of people only focus on the front end business. And there's a lot of people who do purpose work like you do. There's a lot of people who do entrepreneurship education like I do. But what the real difference that the consumer doesn't always see is the back end.
Right.
And those are the systems and the processes that are in place that allow your business to grow and see your business and your purpose to grow and scale. And that's oftentimes where the people have the frustration. Everybody loves the front end. Everybody loves the front end, the website, the brand, the interaction with the customers. But the back end is where the difference is between every single business. And so you got to know the difference between your front end business and your back end business. Like even Amazon, right? Amazon, most people would think that Amazon is a retail company, right? That's the front end business. But the back end of Amazon is actually, it's a fulfillment. Their back end is fulfillment. Right. The reason they've been able to grow this is because of fulfillment, not because they have better products than anybody else online. You think that NYU is an institution of higher education. Well, guess what? Tuition only makes up like 30% of their budget. NYU is a real estate and health company. That is their business model. That is the back end. And so everybody's focused on the front end and creating these nice websites and getting logos and beautiful pictures and whatnot. But I don't care about your front end. What's going to differentiate you is actually how the back end operates. Are you able to attract clients consistently on a daily basis, even with your sleep? Because you could have there's people who have better websites than me, right? But they don't have the business that I have, even though their front end may look better. And so that's because I prioritized and said, here's enough. If you saw my accountant's website, you would not have a clue how much money he actually makes. It is like some Wix website that he built in 10 years ago, has a logo that he probably made in PowerPoint and his email address. That is it.
Right.
That is it. Right? He didn't spend $3,000 on some beautiful website and this and that, but he actually has a strong relationship game where he's great at getting referrals, and that's where his business is. And so while somebody else is working on the front end of their business, trying to go to 99 Designs and get a logo and this and that, he's over here making money taking their clients.
Makes a lot of sense. So if I was to say, okay, well, let's look at someone like myself who's got, a coaching practice, and I'm looking at you as a model. Like, you've created some courses, you've written some books, and you've created some products for passive income. So is that the type of activity that you'd recommend for someone looking to scale, is to start activities like that resonate with what they're doing?
Yeah. So I would change it. These activities are what you just listed are actually derivatives of the greatest activity that every CEO should be focused on, is creating assets. Right. Assets will create money. So a book can be an asset. A funnel can be an asset. A working Facebook ad campaign can be an asset, because even when you are not physically working, that thing is working for you. Having great people that you've trained properly are assets. And so I focus on asset creation, and those assets come in the form of people, processes, products, etc. So that's what I want most of my time to be focused on. I used to be so dedicated to like email inbox zero, right?
Right.
And now I don't give a flying. I literally don't. There are probably 3 emails that come through my account every single day that matter,
Right.
and my email looks a mess. But I'm not focused on trying to get through my email. Email is not where my business gets done. That's not where my business gets done. If I cleared out every email today, I may not make $1 if I cleared out every single email today.
And then it would all be there the next day.
Yeah. And so I've learned how to reprioritize what's important, because I used to think that that was important. And that's actually what caused me to become a workaholic.
Right.
Workaholics, they do work to look important. So they like staying busy, whereas high performers look for the most important work to do.
Right.
Workaholics just grow busier and busier and busier, whereas high performers grow the business. For a long time, I thought I was a high performer, but the reality was that I was actually a workaholic. And it wasn't until I was in a relationship with my wife that she held up a mirror for me on the same way that I do for my coaching clients and said, "Do you see that you can't turn this off?" And I rejected it because, you know, everybody believes that they're working hard for their family. But
Right.
work is the very same thing that takes you away from your family if you're not careful, right? And so I've made shifts in my life in the way that I work and how I work and what I work on, so that I'm more productive in less time. And, you know, when my daughter came, she's 3 years old now, I thought that I would have less time in my business and my business would fail as a result of it. And because I was able to shift from workaholic to high performer, my business has grown significantly, even though I have less time to work in the business than I did as a single young man with tons of energy.
Right. Yeah, I think,
So,
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it has to also do with the fact that, you know, we as humans can tend to do the things that we're comfortable with, and being busy, you know, we think that that's doing work, but those things that may challenge us a little bit more, that can create more impact, we're less comfortable doing. So we got to like lean into that discomfort to
yeah.
create that impact and be more efficient, like you're talking about.
Yeah, and what you know, what has really helped me with that is honestly, so I shared with you earlier that we have a weird psychology about ourselves. We're more comfortable disciplining ourselves than other people. So what's actually helped me with that is not only my mastermind, where I have to show up in front of a group of people and present some sort of deliverable, but once I got my first hire, and even before I had what I felt was enough money to hire somebody,
Right.
that person, their presence, waiting on me to give them work and to actually show up and know that I had another mouth to feed, it caused me to perform at a higher level than just chilling in my pajamas. I mean, I'm in pajama pants now, but you know, it really forced me because it provided, having that first hire provided a level of accountability that I didn't have when I was just waking up and would go to my computer and do what I needed to do. And not, it didn't I don't think about it, oh, I got more mouths to feed and I got to grind, I got to hustle. That's not how I think about it. But it forced me to say, what is the best way to grow this and leverage the assets that we have created to continue to keep the momentum and make this thing go forward. So yeah, that has been powerful. So even if you're moving towards just getting somebody halftime, having that kind of consistent presence of another person, it's always going to push you to a higher level.
Yeah, and allows you to delegate and do more impactful work.
Yeah.
Just looking at the clock, I know you got a busy day ahead of you. So, anything else that we haven't covered that you think is important for the audience to know? I mean, I love what you've shared so far.
I'll leave them with some questions from my book, The 8 Cylinders of Success, how to align your personal and professional purpose. And the first one is, there's different ways to come at your purpose. Many people have different kind of philosophies. I'll give you these 8 kind of things to consider, and 5 of them may work for you, and 3 don't. If one of them gets you more clarity, then that's great. So they're just kind of different lenses. So one is your principles or what you value. That's
Right.
one way to access your purpose. The other one is your passion. And I have a free course in the Freedom School called the Passion Finder that will guide you through the process of really thinking about what your passion is and coming up with language for it. right? A lot of people think of their passion as some sort of topic. I think of your passion as an action. And once you get clear about your passion as an action, it's easier for you to find economic opportunities around it. The other one is problem, right? So rather, I've been encouraging more people to look for problems than their passion lately. Go find a problem that you are passionate about.
Right.
Right. Where the greatest wealth has come in this world is when somebody solved a huge problem, right? Henry Ford solved a huge problem. Therefore, he was able to gain wealth. Bill Gates solved a huge problem. Your wealth will be directly proportional to the size of problems that you solve, not just how passionate you are, right? Elon Musk has found a huge problem, right? Fossil fuels, climate change, etc. And he's so passionate about it. And the byproduct of that passion is Tesla and his solar company and SpaceX, etc. The other one are finding your pioneer, somebody who's actually doing the work that you really care about. The other one is finding the people that you feel dedicated to serving, right? You could be serving millennial men who have these kind of particular jobs in the United States. Somebody else could be taking the same work and serving African-American women, right? I know several people who I would call your sisters in this work who are doing the same work, but different audiences. So finding the people that you have an affinity for, that you really care about, that can be access to your purpose. The other one is your positioning. If you had to be the best in the world at one thing, what would it be? What would you dedicate your life to mastering, right? I'm probably one of the top 5 people at developing and launching and scaling masterminds right now in the world, right? And I'm young because it's a skill set that I've developed, and I believe it's the direction that the world is going to. This is why WeWork is succeeding, right? And this is why WeWork bought Meetup.com. The world is moving in this direction of community. The other one is your picture, right? This is your vision for the world. And then finally is kind of like your possibility. My possibility that I stand for is a world where everyone has a team and freedom for all. That is the possibility that I stand in. And so those are 8 different angles to look at your purpose. Again, some may work for you, some may not, but anything that moves you one step closer to clarity, that brings me joy.
All right. That was mind blown.
Dope.
Yeah, those are some amazing questions, and definitely some interesting ones to think on. And I think, as long as people are taking action towards that, you may not have the epiphany that you expect today or tomorrow, but taking action towards answering those questions and seeing where that leads you is the way forward, as opposed to, getting stuck along the way saying, I don't know. So I think it's important to give yourself some leeway and trust the journey, not that you'll get exactly to that destination.
So I don't know is really key, because I believe that I believe are the 3 most powerful words in the entire world, more powerful than I love you. Every discovery, every creation has come from first saying, I don't know. But it's the intention behind the I don't know. Somebody who comes from a space of I don't know as an escape route, right, to not actually do the work, that's different than somebody who's coming from I don't know in a place of curiosity, right? And so if you do say I don't know, make sure it's I don't know, but I'm curious to figure it out, not I don't know to escape actually doing the work and looking at yourself. Huh? Say what?
I said, I don't know. I'm just
throwing up the hands and hoping that someday it's just going to land in your lap. That's not how it works. You have to seek, right? You have to seek.
All right. Well, I think it's a great place to land the plane. Really appreciate your time today and all of the knowledge you shared. It's awesome.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Keep doing your thing, man.
All right. You too. I look forward to connecting soon, and have a great day.
Yeah. Talk to you later. Peace.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Purpose Up with me, Ben Stein. Please subscribe here on YouTube so you can be updated on when the latest episodes come out, as well on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you consume podcasts. And since you're still sticking around, I've got a special free gift for you. Just go to purposeup.com/free gift, or click this link here to get book recommendations from me, a guided meditation, as well as a book I wrote on how to live your life more purposefully. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it and you.